it's very cool to see. This was one of my favorite things I've watched. Draymond Green hosted, I believe, the first episode of his I guess little show called Chips, and he brought on none other than the Slim Reaper himself, Kevin Durant, to talk about his career as a whole, everything going on there. But the most important part was his time in OKC. For those of you who haven't watched it, it was spectacular. I highly recommend. And for me, I think the coolest part was, I think most people didn't like Kevin Durant when he made that decision. But he's just grown so much since then is what he really emphasized. And you can hear it in his voice. And he really just stands by his decision. He said, if I had to do that a million times over, I would never change anything. Because in reality, it was best for him as a person, as a player, for his career, So in a way, it gave me more of a respect for KD, more so as, an individual rather than obviously his basketball talent. I don't know if it's even comparable to anyone, arguably the best scorer of all time. But just seeing him kind of, really, really talk before like that. I haven't listened to him speak. You always see him more as a bad guy. But since this interview really came out, I listened to it. A lot of it, he was very, I guess, insightful is the right word, because who knows his career better than him. So it was really cool to listen to. I think, with him talking to Draymond, it's two guys who they had their not falling out, but they butt heads. And then the cool part too, maybe not the cool part, interesting part, they blamed it on the organization. They said the front office, the coaches, they messed it up. It wasn't us. We would have made up. It was the front office. So I'm curious, what do you guys think on that? It was just the entire 20 minutes of, I think it was 25-minute interview. I was engaged like crazy. It was awesome to watch.
Yeah, it was a great interview. First on, them kind of blaming the Warriors front office there. I mean, and even the head coaching as well, and Steve Kerr. But, you kind of understand that that's where the players are going to go because they look at it from their perspective. And obviously now, years removed from the situation, Draymond and KD seem to be relatively friendly. So they're not going to go out and say, we would have never made up, we hate each other, or we hated each other. That wasn't, obviously wasn't the case. And I'm sure they would have. And it was interesting to hear that perspective, something that, as the media, we don't really get to see that perspective, especially with a team like Golden State, and the run that they were able to go on. But I agree with you, Nick. I think overall the interview was really fascinating to hear KD, and really somebody that, I've watched play for years on the basketball court, but haven't seen too much from him in terms of interviews or what, he's given other than on his Twitter and social media, which he also talked about in the interview. But sitting down with him and which Draymond did, and listening to kind of his maturity, impressed me with his decision to go to Golden State, still defending that now. Obviously, he's going to defend it, but also just his mindset now, his mindset looking back on his career. Those things impressed me. I was just very kind of surprised, not in a bad way, but KD showed certainly lots of maturity. And made me look at him differently, not just as, an incredible scorer. And like you said, maybe one of the, the best scorers of all time. You can make the argument for sure. Not only incredible basketball player, but, now as he gets older and later in his career, he understands what it takes to go out and win a championship. I thought it was really interesting. One part of it was one specific part I found that he mentioned was that after winning back-to-back with the Warriors, going into his third year, we in the media kind of, not us personally, but in general in the media, looked at Kevin Durant, his very serious demeanor, very serious attitude, and saw that as, okay, he doesn't want to be in Golden State anymore. But really, he talked about that, and he talked about how badly he wanted to three-peat, how badly he really wanted to say, we're going to go out and win again, and how focused he was to do that. So to hear that perspective and think of the player's perspective is something that the media doesn't really do enough, I don't think. So these interviews are definitely great for that reason as well, I think. And I don't know. Yeah, I guess Jack, I'm sure he wants to jump in at some point. Maybe he can now. Jack, go ahead and jump in.
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
I just want more attention. Like, I want more of these types of interviews.
Yeah.
I want to, I want more of The Last Dance. I want more of the documentary on Malice at the Palace. I want to hear Tom Brady on The Shop talk about his free agency experience. I just want more microphones around these guys that are willing to talk about their experiences.
And especially interviews with other players, because that's when they really open up. That's when it's not like, okay, you're talking to somebody in the media that'll spin the story. It's opening up with a former teammate. That's the big part of it.
Yeah, I just want, it's so great for us as fans, as media members, whatever, just to be able to hear them talk about it, because no one knows better than them. They live through those experiences. They're the focal points of these moments that we watch on TV, and we look up to these guys. So hearing their unfiltered thoughts about it is just so entertaining and informational. It's just, I really think it's one of my favorite things about sports, like hearing players give their like recount of these experiences.
Yeah, you said it. There was nothing better than The Last Dance to watch. I think when everyone was stuck in quarantine.
Incredible TV. It was awesome. Yeah.
And I think that the real reason why these guys can sit down with each other and have these conversations, KD and Draymond, if you look at 2016 to 2018, 2019, there are no other people besides the 15 guys that were on that roster who can understand what was going on in the Warriors locker room and the Warriors games and the Warriors practice, but those guys. There's no one else. They all have that same experience, of course, in their own perceptions, but fans, media, you can't even begin to speculate what's going on there. So hearing Kevin Durant, you could tell it was totally open, totally him. He was explaining everything, and it was just awesome to hear, because I think it caught everyone's eye when you saw the two of them sitting down and talking. Because they go, last time we saw them talk, it didn't seem like it was a great thing. But then, of course, obviously, time goes on and things change. But it's just phenomenal to see these guys get out there and talk. And like you said, Jack, I think the more of this, the merrier for fans and in some cases, I think, for the players. I'm sure Kevin Durant wanted to get a lot out there so people could kind of really understand him more as not this evil snake, as us fans have called him, but more so, a man, a person who goes out there and is a professional. He wants to win, and that's what he did. It's that simple.